Assalamu alaikum everyone, and welcome to week 5. This week again we'll be looking at grammar, and our focus will be on conjunctions and compound adjectives. Now I know we've already looked at compound adjectives, but like I mentioned in your Zoom lesson, that this week, so in your next Zoom lesson now on Monday or Tuesday, you'll be having a test on compound adjectives and conjunctions. So we'll be focusing on conjunctions first, and then we'll have a little look at the compound adjectives. So your learning objectives for this lesson are: you need to identify conjunctions and the words they join in sentences. You need to complete sentences providing appropriate conjunctions, and this will be done through your worksheet. And you'll be asked to write sentences that contain conjunctions used in specific or different ways. And we'll also be revising compound adjectives. Homework schedule is in front of you. I'll be uploading that in Google Classroom as well. Depending on what day your test is, then you can follow the schedule. Right, what are conjunctions? You might have heard the term connectives as well. Connect meaning to join, a word that joins one part of a text to another. Now, connectives is an umbrella term for conjunctions and prepositions and adverbs because they do connect texts together. Now, you are encouraged to use the correct grammatical term, and that is conjunctions, because connectives covers prepositions, adverbs, and conjunctions just have 3 categories that we will not look at all of them. We're only going to be looking at the coordinating conjunctions, but there's also subordinating conjunctions and the correlative conjunctions. We'll be looking at the coordinating conjunction and the use of commas in the sentences that we are writing. So just to sum it up, connective is a word that joins one part of a text to another. Okay, so it's an umbrella term. You're encouraged, advised to use the correct grammatical term, conjunction. And for preposition, say adverb. Don't just use connective for everything. So, conjunction, part of speech that connects 2 words, sentences, phrases, or clauses. Why use conjunctions? Now, too many simple and compound sentences can make writing sound choppy, very sort of abrupt. But too many complex and compound complex sentences where you have lots of things going on there, lots of different words in there, they can make writing difficult to follow. So we need to balance our writing and use different sentence structures and lengths throughout our writing. And without conjunctions, our sentences will be quite short and very simple. If I can give you an example in front of you: I like cooking, I like eating, I don't like washing dishes, I don't like doing this, I hate going to the park. Do you see what I mean? With the conjunctions, we can bring these ideas and pieces of information together. Okay, but they also separate or contrast ideas against each other. So I can say, I like cooking, okay, but I don't like, washing up after. So this is why we need to use conjunctions in our writing. Right, let's jump right in with the coordinating conjunctions. Now I can use mnemonics to remember this. Fanboys. F for, A for and, N for nor, B for but, O for or, Y for yet, and S for so. So let's go through these conjunctions and what they mean. So for, used to cite a reason or a purpose. So Sam drank some water for he was thirsty, giving you a reason. And a very popular one and a very useful one, and one that you all know quite well. Connects or adds one thing to another. I take milk and sugar in my tea, for example. Nor used to indicate a negative idea to an already existing negative idea. So example, Sarah doesn't like apples, nor does she like pears. But used to show a contrast between 2 ideas or items. So all the children wanted to eat pizza, but no one wanted to buy it. Okay, so quite simple. Or used to present an alternative to an already present positive idea. So we could go to the zoo, or we could go to a theme park. So it's giving you 2 alternatives there. Yet, used to introduce an idea that adds something to a previous idea, and it usually contrasts it. Okay, so the weather was cold and wet, yet we enjoyed it very much. So, when it's raining and wet outside, but you still manage to enjoy it, you're actually contrasting with the previous idea. Next up we have so, used to indicate the effect or result of an occurrence. He is sick, so he's not going to the school. But before we jump into using commas with conjunctions and whether we need to use a comma with our conjunctions or not, we need to recap on sentences. Now I know you know all about writing sentences, but revision is necessary for you to make sense of using the comma when you're using conjunctions in your writing. So, we have different types of sentences. One example, statement. Elephants are grey. Just telling you that elephants are grey, that's it. Another one, command, go to your room. You have a question, what is your phone number? You have an exclamation, shut the door. Okay, these are your different sentence types. Now within this, we have clauses. We have independent and dependent clauses in sentences. A clause, just a group of words that includes at least a subject and a verb. Now you know this right from the beginning. But again, like I said, we do need to recap. Main clause is what? It makes sense alone. It's a complete thought. Dependent clause, or those groups of words that are in your sentence that when you split them up, they do not make sense. Okay, so in a sentence, you have the main clause and you have the dependent clause, depending on how you use the words. Let's just have a little look at an example. The chicken ran across the road. Simple sentence, just your main clause, you have a verb, you have a subject, makes sense, full stop at the end. It's a complete thought, chicken ran across the road. Doesn't leave you questioning for anything else. Now look, the chicken ran across the road, comma, and the man chased after it. Now this is your compound sentence. We're not going to dwell too much into why we're using the comma at the moment, but this is your compound sentence where the beginning and the end, you have two main clauses. Meaning this, if you did not have and in the middle and you split this sentence up, both sentences are complete thought. They make sense by themselves. The chicken ran across the road, makes sense. The man chased after it, makes sense. Why I added and here, why I added this conjunction, is to join these two sentences together. What I mentioned before about your writing flowing, quite easily we could have put a full stop in the middle. But why do that when we have a conjunction? To make our life easier. Look at the third one. The chicken ran across the road and looked for her chick. Now this is your complex sentence. Why? Because it's those sentences that have a mixture, one or more, main clause and dependent clause together. We used and here. Yes, we did use a conjunction here. Did we use a comma? No. Why? Because in this sentence, we have a dependent clause at the end. We only use a comma when there are two main clauses, two independent clauses in the sentence. And that's what we're going to look at in detail. Write the comma, to use or not with the conjunctions. Now this can get a little confusing, but we will look at a couple of rules to help you and make things a lot clearer. Now, comma is basically the punctuation used to mark a division in a sentence. So it separates the words, phrases, a clause, or a sequence like you have in word lists. Now, if we look at this sentence in front of us, the cat sat on the wall, but she quickly decided to jump on the comfy rug. Here the comma is being used when the sentence has two independent phrases that are being joined. Two main clauses. So here we have two sentences that make sense by itself. Each of the two clauses in these sentences could be sentences on their own. So if you put a full stop after wall, the next sentence without the but is a complete sentence, and that is why we use the comma here. And the same applies no matter which conjunction is being used. Number 2, if you're merging two sentences into one with a conjunction, use a comma. So I like pies, comma, and I like cakes. Again, if you got rid of the and, put a full stop in between, you'll have two separate complete sentences. 3, with 3 or more list items, use a comma. So you like fish, comma, chips, and then when you're just about to use the conjunction, you have and peas. Now you don't use a comma just before and here. If you're more familiar with the American written English, they tend to put a comma before the and, but for British English, we don't. So it's I like fish, then you have comma, chips and peas. Here I have a little chart for you to make things a little easier, where you ask yourself questions. So when you have the sentence, you ask yourself, does the conjunction join two independent clauses? If no, then you ask yourself another question. If yes, you go down this map. And that way you'll be a lot clearer when to use a comma and when not to. You can refer to this chart anytime you are confused. So let's have a look at some more examples of how we use commas when we're using conjunctions in our sentences. Now in the compound sentence, the comma is placed before the coordinating conjunction. So have a look at the examples. Andy built a snowman, comma, and Jeff played with his dog. Again, if you split the sentence in half, both sentences are complete. They are a full thought, okay? They are fully complete, you don't need anything else. If they were split up and we put a full stop in the middle, those two will serve as independent sentences. Would you like a coffee or would you rather have tea? Again, I put a comma here before or, because if I split it up, two independent sentences. If the same sentence was, would you like a coffee or tea, then I would not put a comma, because just tea by itself, that's not going to be independent, is it? It's just one word, that's it. Remember, we need a subject and a verb in our full independent clause. I really wanted my son to stay at college, comma, yet he decided to get a job. Again, you have independent sentences. I have to find a new job, for I am unemployed. I have 1 dog and 3 budgies. Now if we split this one up, 3 budgies by itself is dependent on that first sentence, I have 1 dog. Okay, it can't stand alone. It's not a complete thought. Okay, so here we will not have a comma. Neither Mark or Anne were at school today. Now here, Anne were at school today. No, neither Mark. Again, no independent clauses, so we do not use a comma. I do work, but I make sure I have weekends off. Again, both of them independent thought, complete sentences both ways. Right guys, let's recap compound adjectives. This is where we could use a number and a noun, adjective and a noun, adjective or a present participle, basically 2 words that are joined together and it counts as one. It's one idea, okay? So even though there's 2 words, it'll count as 1 word. Compound adjectives. Whatever the 2 words are, in the end, it's a describing word, okay? So it appears before a noun, acts as a single idea, and it describes something. More often than not a noun. Let's take an example that we looked at last time, the sugar-coated tablets. Basically what it means is that the tablets are coated in sugar, or the tablets are covered in sugar. But why use all these words and have such a long sentence when we can just say sugar-coated tablets? How do we know when to put a hyphen? Remember that hyphen is that little mark in the middle, punctuation? We can ask these questions, and if a no is anywhere in the answer, then a hyphen is needed. Okay, so what questions are we going to ask? Are the tablets, is it a sugar tablet? No. Is it a coated tablet? No, it doesn't really make sense. Sugar tablet, okay, maybe we could answer yes to, but they don't really make sense. So we need to put a hyphen in the middle of this compound adjective. We use a hyphen if the compound adjective comes before the noun, not after. So as you can see here, it comes before the noun tablets. Another question you can ask yourself, that if you added "and" in the middle of those two words that you're using as a compound adjective, will it still make sense? If no, then it needs a hyphen. Because remember, we use two words at times and we ask ourselves questions, and that's when we know when to put a hyphen. Otherwise, sometimes you don't need a hyphen. So if in this example, sugar-coated tablets, we ask ourselves, okay, can it be a sugar and coated tablet? Doesn't make sense, so we add a hyphen. Let's have another look at an example. She's very strong-willed, and if she's decided to leave school, nothing will stop her. She's very strong, does make sense. She's very willed, doesn't make sense, add a hyphen. Okay? And she's very strong and willed, doesn't make sense, again we add a hyphen. Another example we can look at, I come from a well-educated family. And just like these, there's lots of compound adjectives that we can use. Now, the most important thing here is that you should know what the compound adjectives mean. Okay, so the examples in front of you, like 5-minute, good-looking, long-lasting, wind-powered, sun-dried, what do they mean? Because if you're not sure of the meanings of these compound adjectives, then they are meaningless in your writing. But here are lots of compound adjectives, examples that you can have a look at, and the ones at the bottom on the right-hand side, I'd like you to use them in sentences of your own. Now the ones in these color-coded bars, they're actually used in sentences, so you can have a look and look around for the meaning of the compound adjectives, because when you read the sentence, you'll have a clue about what the compound adjectives actually mean. Now all the conjunctions and compound adjectives that have been given in this video, they can come up in any form in the Zoom test. I could ask for sentences, I could ask for meaning, I might ask you to write a paragraph maybe using these, so it depends. But you all need to just make sure that you are familiar with the rules, you know how to identify compound adjectives or conjunctions, and you know how to use them in your writing correctly. Now in the explanations I usually do not write everything out on the slides for you. But I thought because it's a recap and the video on compound adjectives has already been done, this one would be more useful if what I'm saying is actually in front of you as well, so you can use it for your knowledge. So, the compound adjectives, two or more words joined together by a hyphen to describe or modify the same noun. Okay? And they're sometimes hyphenated, and it helps to avoid confusion, which is why we use the hyphen. And it acts as one word. Do not forget this, because sometimes you have a word count when you're writing an essay or when you're doing something in an exam. So when you're using these two words and you think it counts as two words, it does not. It counts as one word. Okay? Now, when a compound adjective follows a noun, a hyphen is usually not necessary. So if you look here, the apartment is off campus. We don't have a hyphen here because the noun now is in the beginning, not at the end. So we don't need a hyphen here. Even though off campus is a compound adjective, but we're not hyphenating it here. And often, and probably very overlooked rule for hyphens, is the fact that adverb very and adverbs ending in ly are not hyphenated. So we can't say the very elegant watch or the finely tuned watch. And this rule only applies to adverbs. So if you look at these examples in front of you, the friendly looking dog or family owned cafe, well, these ly words, this is correct because they're not adverbs, okay? What is friendly, what is family? They are definitely not adverbs. They're not describing a verb. Right, so for your Zoom test preparation, there's a couple of things I'd like you to do, and that way you'll be prepared fully for your Zoom test. Now, it's nothing to worry about. You've sat in exams literally since you, I think, maybe in grade 1. Okay, so nothing to worry about. It's just a very short test, just for us to know that you are understanding concepts and for us to know maybe where you might need extra help. Okay, so, and to obviously make sure you are going through the videos and learning your concepts. So first of all, go through the video. I'd like you to note down any rules for the concept that we're discussing. Make a note of any conjunction and compound adjective examples. These could be brought up in your Zoom test. Practice writing sentences using the coordinating conjunctions and compound adjective examples given. Look in other books to see how conjunctions and compound adjectives are used. This gives you a lot of knowledge and a lot of practice as well to actually see them written, okay, in different materials. Message me if any confusion, please. I've asked all of you to freely message me in the Google Classroom if there is anything you are unsure of. Okay, cameras on, book notes away, pen and paper ready on Zoom test day. And you can do it. Okay, cameras on, why? Because I have my eyes on you. Okay, so good luck, take care of yourselves and others around you.